Caleb Spangenberger, Williams Partners Architects. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So just real quick before we get into some of the questions, and we're going to kind of frame everything from the standpoint of how do we help an end user of a piece of real estate here avoid mistakes with architecture. How'd you wind up in Ketchum? Give me your background real quick. How long you been in architecture?
Yeah, originally from Atlanta, Georgia. Moved out here in 2013. So been here about 13 years now. Williams Partners Architects has been locally operating in Ketchum here for about 33 years. So it's been a good fit for me. I've been very fortunate to land there, and we've done some good work over the years. So I'm really pleased.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's just get right into it. So when someone's looking at buying a piece of real estate, from your standpoint, if they're going to buy a piece of land, what are some things that they should be asking as they go into that process, as they're maybe in escrow? What are the right questions to be asking in Sun Valley for someone who wants to buy and develop a piece of property?
Well, I think there's a lot of work, a lot of homework you can do on the front end to make sure that the lot is going to yield a project that satisfies your needs. You know, for example, the project could be considered speculative, and so you'd want to make sure the project can yield enough scope to where there's enough margin there. You know, a lot of times we ask client, what is your both short-term and long-term goals for the project? Is it intended for aging in place? And so some of those considerations would be, you'll likely want to have enough room to spread out on one level. Do the CC&Rs allow you to add sufficient space for either an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, or enough space attached to the house for caretakers in the future, or maybe extended family to move in? Or, for example, the lot could be intended for seasonal use, you know, to take advantage of the recreational opportunities here, in which case you'll want to make sure that it has the proper access to all the public land or the mountain that you want. Is there sufficient room for storage for your gear? What is your plan for maintenance when the house isn't occupied? Are short-term rentals allowed? You know, there's a lot of homework you can do by either checking with the local ordinances, the zoning regulations, or consulting with the local professional to make sure that the lot is going to fit your needs.
Have you come across that experience? I mean, a lot of the questions you ask should be what my job is, flushing out some of those questions.
Right.
But have you had someone come to you owning the land and then asking the question like, we want to do this project, and you're like, you know what, that's actually not a viable...
We have. Yeah, and I think that centers around not understanding sort of what it takes to build in town with both schedule and budget.
Okay.
We'll get into that a little
bit. Let's put a pin in that, because I do think we get to that. All right, so Sun Valley is a unique area. We do have 4 seasons. In typical years, we have heavier snow load. Mm-hmm. Haven't really been there the last couple, but what's unique about building in Sun Valley versus other areas?
Yeah, I think what surprises some people is that to the extent of how varying our seasons are. We are a full 4-season town. You know, we're sitting here on a day like today. It could be 90 degrees.
Could be.
Fast forward.
It's feeling like it's going to be 90 degrees.
Fast forward to February, it could be below 0 for a number of weeks, a month. You know, you have those high snow years, low snow years like you do this year. And so I think you want to make sure that you're planning a project that's comfortable year round for all those varying seasons. You know, one hyper-local example of that could be if your lot's in Sun Valley, you know, your primary view corridor a lot of the times is toward Baldy. People want to see the mountain, right? Mm-hmm. Well, experiencing that space in the summertime, you know, staring west, you're staring into the sun for a significant portion of the day, right?
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure there's shading mechanisms or protection from the elements, you know, while you enjoy those view corridors that you moved here for.
Yeah. What is one of the things that, like, is there one thing that sticks out that people are most surprised about? Or does it depend on the location, the project?
Yeah, I think it does get hyper local. You know, your view corridors want to be considered with respect to layout of the building and whatnot.
Yeah.
But those view corridors could be different out in Croy Canyon than they are in Sun Valley, right? And so it starts to inform how you design the project and what you want your big considerations to be.
Yeah.
But you know, across the valley, we're a high desert. It stays dry. We're able to leverage that. We like to use cold roofs We like to use flat roofs. They perform really well in the snow. That surprises a lot of people sometimes, that flat roofs are a snow climate device.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. So
yeah.
I would think, just a pitch would be.
Yeah, well, when you have a pitched roof, you have to protect against snow sliding off of it. A lot of times we put snow retention devices to try to maintain that snow up there. We try to utilize a sort of newer version of a cold roof that allows the snow not to melt and create a lot of ice dams. And so those are things you want to be familiar with before you get into the design of the building.
If I was a client and I'm sitting here with you, how do you guys, how do you help mitigate those surprises?
Just being upfront, luckily we're able to leverage a ton of experience here locally. A lot of our work is local, and so we've got a pretty significant portfolio across many different design styles that have been successful. Early on, a lot of Jeff Williams's house didn't transact a lot, and so the familiarity wasn't there. The end user wound up using the property for a significant amount of time, and so it took some aging on the vine before some of those projects started transacting with people aging out of them or sizing down or whatever. And so we're able to leverage a lot of that experience and be upfront with them about what it takes to build here and what ensures success in this climate.
Well, you mentioned the labor force, right? I mean, I don't think anyone who is familiar with Sun Valley's unfamiliar with some of our challenges that we have, high cost of living and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But before we hit record, you mentioned the skilled trades that we have here.
Yeah.
I think that is something that surprises people, where they're like, hey, and I don't want to knock another area, right? There's great trades in Twin and Boise and things like that, but I think some people think they can, offshore it, if you will, right? Like, I'll bring in somebody from this area who said they can do it cheaper.
Right.
Have you seen that come up? Where does that make sense? Where does that not make sense? How would you kind of guide somebody to say, what, let's not shortcut here. Let's make sure we bring in the proper tradesman for that particular deal.
Right. Yeah, we have seen that. We've experienced it over the past. We are very fortunate locally to have very talented craftspeople. We're able to design and execute complex technical projects pretty consistently, without fear of problems in the future. A lot of our clients are very sophisticated. Perhaps they've done this before in other markets or have relationships in the industry that they'd like to try to leverage. And sometimes that can backfire, in the sense that if you do bring in a labor from outside the valley, a labor source or material or supplier or what have you, they may not be familiar with the design and construction at elevation, at these temperatures. And so those can backfire from time to time. We want to be open for our clients and always utilize their resources effectively and take advantage of the relationships that they've developed over the years. But we do caution in certain areas, like, hey, let's stay away from, perhaps using this out-of-town roofer from a warmer client that may not understand exactly what we're trying to do.
Right. Okay. So again, it sounds like your guys' approach, and I think this is the proper approach, is really sitting down, asking the right amount of questions, and then tailoring the project exactly to that end user's goals.
Yeah. So there's, with any project anywhere, there's 4 sort of main levers or mechanisms that you sort of pull on to try to get the right balance. There's scope, the associated budget and schedule, and then quality. We've already touched on quality a little bit. Understanding the schedule is really important, how long it takes to get entitlements, and then how long the construction takes. These are really important things to study and make sure that fits within your horizon for the use of the lot. If you have an absolute drop dead date that you need to move in, plan accordingly. If you have an absolute budget that you cannot exceed, plan accordingly. Maybe back off on scope, back off on quality in a couple areas to achieve that and give yourself plenty of cushion.
Okay. Now, just real quick, it wasn't part of what I was going to ask you, but how do the pieces of the puzzle come together, right? I might be representing a buyer, right, purchasing that property, introducing them to you. But from your standpoint, what other aspects come into play? You're going to deal with the city for, like you said, you're going to have permitting and zoning and things like that. What other things come to the table that a buyer would want to know is coming down the pipe for them?
Yeah, a lot of us, not just our shop, a lot of shops are available for consultation, prior to even being engaged. So we'll have conversations with potential clients, people looking at lots, and sometimes we've had experience where we've really studied a lot in depth for a client. They didn't move forward with it, and so we have really in-depth knowledge about this particular piece of property, and someone else comes along is interested in it, and we're able to leverage that homework that we've already done. But it comes with a lot of dialogue, a lot of iteration, a lot of back and forth. I think uh, we have a reputation as architects maybe of disappearing into our little creative holes with our heads down and coming out with the solution, and it's not how the process works at all.
Okay.
It's very iterative. There's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of goal setting, there's a lot of understanding of what we're after, what style we're after, what goals we're after for the project, and where the very first presentation we give to the client is often not where we end up. We thrive on feedback, and we need that from the client, and they eventually get into a loop with us and get comfortable with guiding us where they want to be, and that helps us get there.
It sounds a very collaborative approach there.
For sure.
Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think someone locally or from out of state should know about?
Well, I think a big trap is not giving yourself enough contingency.
Okay.
We touched on it a little bit earlier, but
yeah, go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's very smart to not push yourself right to the wire, particularly like we said before with budget and schedule. Give yourself some cushion, give yourself some time. Moving here, transfer and storage, white glove services, all these bandwidths are sort of limited, and so you want to make sure that you're not calling somebody and saying, "Hey, can you get me moved in next week?"
Yeah,
might not have it.
It's the week before Christmas,
yeah,
and
it's the week before Christmas, and we'd like to move.
We'd like to be in.
This is the first time we've talked. Yeah, so avoid those pitfalls, and everything should work fine.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
All right, nothing else. Do we cover what we need to cover?
I think so.
All right, terrific. I appreciate the time.
Thanks
for sitting down.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.